Things webinar. And first up, we have Charlotte Blakeman from the Jessamine County Public Library. And we're going to have her take it away. Thank you, Charlotte.
All right, thank you. Like she said, I am Charlotte Blakeman. I'm with the Jessamine County Public Library, and I am the selector for our Library of Things. I do have my email on this slide, but I also have it on all at the bottom of all of the other slides. So if you have questions later, feel free to contact me. And I'll just go ahead and apologize for talking really fast. I have a lot of information to get through in a short period of time. All right, so first up, we're going to talk about our history of our Library of Things. We have had this collection since 2016 when we moved into our newly expanded and renovated building. And we wanted to kind of step out of the box and offer some less traditional items. We did begin our collection small with just a few like acoustic stringed instruments, a few sewing machines, and some iPad e-readers. We actually no longer have the iPad e-readers and we have Chromebooks instead. We've also added lots of items since then. So, something to take from that is that you can always start small and then grow your collection from there. And you're also going to learn as you go as to what works and what doesn't work. All right, so how do we select for our Library of Things? So one thing that we always take a look at is technological trends. You don't want to get a piece of technology that's outdated that your customers aren't going to want to use. Customer interest, what's going on in your community, what are some things that are popular amongst the people that you serve. And then a big thing that we try to do is we try to have a relationship to the existing materials in our collection and then our online resources, programs, and other things that we offer. So, for example, we have a recording studio in our library. We also have an online resource called Artist Works that teaches customers how to play various types of musical instruments. We have a variety of music programs. We do make music days. So our musical instruments help complement all of those things. And then we have sewing machines in our Library Things collection. We do a lot of sewing classes and crafting programs. And so those things sort of complement one another. Another big thing that we have looked at is our community needs. So we identified that we have a lot of people in our communities that cannot afford Wi-Fi. So we have Wi-Fi hotspots in our collection. Price is another thing to look at. These type of items generally are going to be fairly expensive and run you more. So you need to pay attention to that. How much can you spend on these items? Storage is another big one. I've included photos there on this slide of where we store our items because when items are not checked out, you need to have somewhere to put them. And you'd be really surprised at how fast your storage areas can fill up with those items. So that's something to consider. And then the other thing that you want to think about is your ability to repair and maintain items. A lot of these types of items are going to need things done to them. So your instruments are going to need to have strings replaced, or your sewing machines are going to need to be cleaned. You might have cloth cases that come back kind of smelly that need to be aired out and Febreze. So all of those things kind of need to be built into your plan and also to be considered when you select for those items. Okay, so let's talk about what's in our collection. I'm going to start with our most popular items. By far, our Wi-Fi hotspots and our Chromebooks are the most popular. They stay checked out. We usually have a whole list that's fairly long for those hotspots, but it does serve a community need. Our musical instruments tend to do really well. We have a wide variety of those. And so those are fairly popular. It gives, especially young people or someone just getting into a musical instrument, it gives them a chance to kind of try it out before investing their money in that. Any of our sewing machines, embroidery machines, and AccuQuilt machines are really popular. If you don't know what an AccuQuilt Go machine is, it's really cool. It's kind of like an old die cut machine. except it's for fabric. So essentially, you can roll a stack of fabric through the machine, and that cuts out perfect quilt squares, or triangles, or whatever shape you have in there for your die. Very cool. Um, Another thing that is really, really surprising is that's really popular is our bird watching kit. This is an easy thing to put together. It is essentially just a backpack with a few different sizes of binoculars in them and a couple of bird guides. So we get a lot of bang for our buck with those. So that's something that you may want to try out in your library thing. Laser level and stud finders popular. Who knew? And then we also have a couple of retro video game consoles, like our Atari Flashback and a Super Nintendo Classic system that stay checked out fairly well. One thing that we've recently learned with these, though, is you have to be careful about the quality of those items that you're getting, because they maybe don't last as long as you would like for how much you're spending on those. So you want to shop around and make sure you're getting a good quality one. All right, so on to the less popular items. We have board games in our collection. They don't circulate super well. It could be the type of board games. Um, it's hard to say. Portable CD players and DVD players are not super popular, and that's one of those things that could be a technological trend that is maybe on the downward slope. GPS units, of course, most people have GPS on their phone. Graphing calculators, it's possible that those aren't popular because most kids have them in school. We have some P90X and Insanity DVD sets. They're like whole series of workout videos. They have not checked out very well either. Disc and Frisbee golf sets. And then we have another retro video game console. It's the Mayflash arcade fighting stick. And for whatever reason, it has not circulated maybe as well as some of the other ones. Now, the other two things that are on this list are music maker, sound exploration kits that are kind of geared for small children. And they're fairly new, so it's possible that the popularity of those will go up, but at the moment they are not circulating all that well. Um, okay, so that's all of the items in our collection. Now, how do you borrow from our library of things? Our Anyone who wants to borrow must have a regular full access account in good standing. We do have something called a temporary account for customers who are from out of town or who cannot show proof of address or who are maybe staying at a temporary address. And we do restrict those customers from checking out library things because of the expense. Otherwise, we allow both adults and children to borrow, so there's no restriction on ages. Um, we do not require our customers to sign any kind of special agreement. If you sign up for a library card with us, you sign anything checked out on your account, you're responsible for. So we think that that kind of covers it. All of our items except for Wi-Fi hotspots check out for 3 weeks and get one renewal. Our Wi-Fi hotspots check out for 1 week with no renewals, and that is simply because there is a very high demand for those. We allow holds on all of our items, and we limit 2 items to be checked out at a time. All right, so what's good and what's bad? What's good is that it's really, really popular with our customers. It's going to give your library that wow factor and keep you relevant to changing times. So if you've ever had that, naysayer that you've talked to that says, oh, well, libraries are outdated, and you just have books and they're becoming obsolete. Well, when you have all these really cool things that people can check out and you start rattling them off, usually you get some jaws drop. And people are then really excited to hear the other things that you have in your library. So that's a really fun experience if you've ever had that as well. Um, so the other thing is that it provides access to technology, and it often complements other resources available through your library. So the cons to this maybe are that the items are often expensive. Um, they are vulnerable to theft. There's potentially more to maintain, and finding storage while not used can be a challenge. Um, we are also going to talk more about that as well. All right, so I mentioned certain items are more vulnerable to theft. Those items are often going to be your higher dollar items, like your musical instruments. So what we do here at JCPL is that we either spray paint or engrave our logo or our name onto those items. So you can see down there, it's definitely not the prettiest way to do things, but we do have an electronic guitar there at the bottom with that's been spray painted with our name, and then a Chromebook over there on the right with the JCPL logo that's been engraved. You can tell that that Chromebook has received a lot of use. But we do have an engraving machine here at our library in our creative space that allows us to do this in-house. So that's helpful. Another thing that we do is we communicate with the local pawn shop. Um, Basically, we just let them know that we have these items to look for our logos on things. What they do with that information is up to them, but I will say that we have recovered a few things from pawn shops. So that's potentially helpful. We also create tags on all of our items that have all the pieces listed and the replacement prices. That way, if a customer were to lose a part of their item, that they kind of have an idea of what that's going to cost. And then the last thing that we do is upon return, customers have to return all the items at our service desk. So when they return those, while they're still standing there in front of us, we open up the cases for those items and we check to make sure that all of the parts are in there. And we do that in their presence so that they can say, oh, ooh, whoops, I forgot that. I'll go home. I think I've got that at home and bring it back. So that's helpful as well. But you're still occasionally going to get things that disappear and don't come back, or things that get returned with missing. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, so lastly, we've got a few other things to consider. I mentioned that your items need to be cleaned, repaired, and replacement parts ordered. So you want to have a plan in place for that. The picture on this screen is a workbench that we have that we use for repairing things, cleaning stuff. You'll notice there's lots of different tools and cleaning supplies there. And a guitar that's sitting up on that workbench. It probably needed new strings or something, but that was being worked on. So that's been really helpful. You want to make sure you have procedures in place for when an item comes back with missing pieces. You know, how long do you wait before you charge the person? Do you send a letter? Do you call them? How do you work out those procedures? Another thing to consider is your cataloging and tagging of items that have multiple parts. For instance, we have guitar or electric guitars come with amps. So we make sure that those tags have matching barcodes, and often they're color coded. It helps both our staff and customers know that those things go together. How does it fit into your collection development policy? We have a special section in our policy that kind of lays out our selection criteria for that. So that might be something that you want to consider. Of course, you're going to want to have weeding procedures and criteria in place, and you want to know you know, what are you going to do with items if you do get rid of them? Do you offer them to your programmers, to the schools, to other community organizations, you know, that kind of thing. So, and then lastly, you have to advertise, because if your customers don't know you have these items, then they're not going to be able to check them out. So that has definitely been something that we are always working on, is really getting the word out about all of the things that we offer in the library. So with all of that information being thrown at you in a short period of time, are there any questions? And it looks like we had some sound issues. So yes, so wording in our collection development policy. I would be happy to send you all that. It's also on our website under our policies page, and I will see if I can grab that real quick and put the link up. But the slide that I had there about selecting, a lot of that was pulled from our collection development policy. Any other questions? Like I said, I'm sorry for speaking so fast.
Oh, Charlotte, you are just fine. So lots of good information. Thank you so much for that.
All right,
Really
thank you.
appreciate it. All right. Um, if you all think of anything you want to ask Charlotte, y'all can still go ahead and put that in the chat, or you are more than welcome, like she said, to get in touch with her later on. That is just fine. So thank you again, Charlotte, for presenting today. Really appreciate it. Um, so next we have Kat Gillespie from the Bullitt County Public Library. So whenever Kat is ready, I will let her take it away.
Hi there. I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat just in case anybody comes up with questions after the presentation. Feel free to reach out to me. So there goes that. All right, so let's get started. I wanted to start a little bit just to introduce you all to the Bullitt County Public Library. We are located in Bullitt County, Kentucky, which is just south of the Louisville Metro on 65. We have a population of over 81,000 people, and we are really growing. We're getting a lot of sort of overflow from Louisville right now, and so our communities are really sort of picking up some steam. We have 5 branches. The one that I work at is the central location, which is in Shepherdsville. And then we have 4 other locations in the county. And then I also have our mission statement and our core values on here, if anybody wanted to know about those. And so I wanted to introduce the department that handles the Library of Things a little bit too. So the Library of Things project is sort of the brainchild of the reference department here at BCPL. So during 2020, when we were having closures and limited hours and all of that type of stuff during the pandemic, we decided that we wanted to put our heads together and come up with some sort of, fun and interesting things for people to do since it wasn't a very fun time. So we wanted to sort of increase access to home entertainment and recreation was our initial focus. And so Marianne, my coworker, whose picture is here, she was the person who really came up with the project and did a whole lot of footwork as far as researching and coming up with how we were going to go about things. She did recently retire, so I am taking over in her footsteps. So hopefully I can do the collection some justice. And so I just have a couple of quick facts if you all want to take those away. We've had our collection for about 2 years now. 3 of our branches participate in the collection. We have 3 departments who currently work on the collection, with reference being the main one, and then circulation and admin as well. We have about 71 items. I just added a couple to the collection, so I'm not sure if I counted those or not, but around that number. And then we've had about 700 checkouts of these items since beginning the project. So in the early stages, we did a lot of research before presenting the idea to admin, and we are very lucky to have an administrative team that is very willing to take risks and do new and interesting things. So once they gave us the green light, we started to make purchases. And so our purchases come from our just regular collection budget, and we do not currently have a sort of fund sectioned off out of that collection budget for the Library of Things project, but as we revise into the new fiscal year, I think we are going to have a dedicated fund for the Library of Things, so that's exciting. So our first collection, like I said, was sort of focused on recreation and entertainment. We started in May of 2021. And so since it was starting to be nicer outside, we wanted to focus on some more outdoorsy type things, such as outdoor games and gardening tools. But then we also included some other things that we thought might be fun, like a projector, and some other sort of movie video watching equipment. We had a portable DVD player for road trips, that type of thing as well. And one of our initial problems was figuring out where we were going to put these items. At the time, we were starting the collection in our old Ridgeway Memorial Library, which was not a very large space. So we didn't want to take any space away from displays or other collections that we already had. So we made use of this sort of curved wall that you can see pictured in the slides. That is actually just a wall that kind of separated our children's section off from the rest of the library. And I thought it was a really interesting way to sort of display things because it was right next to one of the doors and right in proximity to the circulation desk. So we decided to put it there, and then we had issues with people coming in and saying, you know, what the heck are these things? So we added some signage and those bright yellow letters that we cut out of cardboard to kind of advertise for our library of things, because at least that gave people something to ask us. Instead of what is this, they could ask what is the library of things, which is a little bit easier to answer. Moving on. So I did kind of include a close-up of some of the signage that we produced. So as you can see, it has both our policies, like our checkout policy, and what is in each item listed. So we listed how many game pieces there were, and then one of these would go sort of in the placeholder for the thing on the curved wall display. And then there was also another one that was laminated and put with the object that went out. So that way, if people were trying to, you know, get all of their things together to take back to the library, they had some type of reference for all of the items so that, you know, we kind of could limit the amount of missing pieces that we had to deal with. So in 2022, we decided to try and add some to the collection, and we wanted to add some items that would potentially benefit folks who work from home or have other home office tasks to take care of. And we did this to try to kind of, I guess, bridge that gap between the working population and also you know, just try to reach some more library patrons. Since we were mostly focusing on families and that type of recreational aspect of things before, we decided to lean a little bit more towards the workforce and see how that worked. So we added a light box, which you can take pictures of, like if you're selling items online, you can take pictures inside of it with really nice lighting and like a really clean looking background for an Etsy shop or something like that. Some scanners, some webcams, and other items like that. And then at this point, we also replaced some items that had been lost or damaged and made some judgment calls on whether or not we wanted to replace some of those items that maybe were in rougher condition and maybe weren't the best fit to replace. And so in between that revamp and the new building that you see pictured here, we actually did expand our collection to 2 more locations. So we had our initial collection at the Ridgeway Memorial Library in Shepherdsville, and then we expanded into our Lebanon Junction location and our Nichols location. So we sent some of the more popular items, some of the larger yard games, and some of the more entertaining recreational items to Lebanon Junction from our initial collection to make room for some of those newer items that we added in for the people who work from home. So This past year, we did close our Ridgeway Memorial Library location, and we opened up a brand new central library. It's huge and shiny and perfect right now. So we have this really nice sort of wall dedicated to our display. We have Library of Things painted on the wall instead of just having cardboard cutouts. So it kind of advertises itself a little bit. But along with this transition to our new location, we sort of really leaned hard into promotion and adding some new items into the collection. So here is an example of one of the promotional items that we used for the collection. This went on our Instagram. As you can see, we have a staff member posed here with a bunch of our items. We have our bubble machine going, which is one of our more popular items. We have a pressure washer and a bunch of other stuff on that cart, just to kind of try and show people a little bit of a visual of the collection if they're looking on our Facebook or Instagram. And we also refreshed that signage that I was showing you earlier. So the sort of yellowy sign is the before version, and the purple one is the after version. We actually color-coded sections on the shelf in the central library so that there would be some type of rhyme and reason to how we shelved these items. So for example, the party and entertaining one that has the karaoke machine on it is this lavender color. And then there are several other sections. There's home and auto, games and entertainment, music for musical instruments, and they each have their own dedicated color so that it's easy enough for staff to kind of place everything together in a way that makes some visual sense. And we also, these signs, these new ones, also we replaced the inserts as well with a similar looking type of item so that it's a little bit easier to just visually look at the thing and see the contents listed there. And then I'm not going to read this word for word because it's very wordy, but I did want to give us give our sort of verbiage that is on our policies and release waiver that we have folks sign, just in case anybody wanted to look at those words. So the way that we kind of try to mitigate some of the issues of possibly theft or possibly late check-ins or something like that, is that we have people sign a waiver before they check an item out, and we hold on to those so that if for any reason we do need to charge them for a missing piece or a broken piece of an item, we do have, you know, their signature that basically says, you know, they agreed to paying for something if they broke it. We also have them sign a waiver just to make sure that if for whatever reason the karaoke machine explodes while they're using it, they can't sue the library. And it also just reiterates our checkout policies. So you can only check out one item at a time. You have to have a card in good standing with us. We don't charge late fees. So the only way you're going to have a fine above $10 is if you have not turned something in just permanently, it's been marked lost, or if it's been broken or something like that. So you have to have fines under $10. And then you have to have your account up to date with us as well. And that kind of prevents people who may not live in the area or may not have a permanent residence from checking out these items just based solely on that cost factor. And so moving on, this is just a little bit more of the lending agreement. The words there, and then a little bit more of the waiver as well. And so this just goes on a double-sided sheet of paper we have up at the circulation desk. The only place that you can check out a Library of Things item is at the circulation desk, just because we have several points of checkout. We have self-checks, we have the reference desk, we have a desk in children's and a desk in teen, and it just gets too confusing if everybody is checking out Library of Things items from every single access point. So we make sure that we only have these up at the circulation desk, and we send those checkouts up that way. And then, so once we have an item returned, with these kind of signed waivers and everything, we go ahead and archive that waiver. So we have it on hand just in case something does ever come up, but it also frees up that space for us so that we don't have it, in our face at the desk. And then we go ahead and we check on all of the items, make sure that everything is in good working order and that no pieces are missing. And then we go ahead, and once we have determined that everything is all good and all together, we check the item back in. So people might actually have an item on their account for, several hours, maybe a whole day, based on who is looking at the item. But we do that just in case we do need to charge someone. We do still have the record of it being actively on their account. And I think that is just about everything. I do see one question from Susan. Do you transport Library of Things items between your branches? So we currently do not. Originally, that was an issue. Our kind of transportation of items between branches, we do transport books and DVDs and items like that, but since we have some of the larger, clunkier items in our Library of Things, we had concerns about basically making our maintenance people transport those back and forth. We have kind of limited space in that van for transportation of those items, but it is something that we would like to do in the future, is to have those items easily transferable between branches. And occasionally, sometimes something does come back from another branch. We'll get something like a scanner from Lebanon Junction will show up at the central library. And generally, we kind of just take it and tell folks, oh, next time take it back to LJ. But yeah, that's how we deal with that. Were there any more questions?
Anybody else have anything else y'all'd like to ask Kat? If you would, put those in the chat. Yeah, think of something later. I'm sure she'd be open to you all emailing her. But yeah, Tiffany has a question.
Yeah, so what are the most popular items? So some of our more popular items are actually some of the first items we added to the collection. We have a giant Connect 4. We have a giant Jenga tower and some other large yard games that are available for checkout, and people really seem to like those. People come in and ask specifically for those. In the same kind of vein, people really like our bubble machines. I guess people, they're fun for parties and for kids and that type of thing. And then other than that, I think our most interesting popular item, I would say, would be our pressure washers. So we have 2 large pressure washers at the central location and then a couple of smaller ones at the other branches. And those actually go out pretty frequently, which I never would have thought that they would be that popular, but people really like a free pressure washer. What sort of automotive things do you circulate? We circulate an engine code reader, and then we have an air pressure monitor as well, and a couple of other smaller things like that. We don't have anything too intense, and so our collection section for that one is home and automotive, so it also includes like a cordless drill and items like that. And then I also saw that someone asked, do you ever need to help patrons load or unload bigger things into their vehicles? And yes, we do. Generally speaking, we will have a circulation clerk or someone else go out and help someone put things into their backseat or into their trunk or something like that. If it's ever after dark, which we close at 8 p.m., so sometimes it is after dark when people are checking these things out, two of us will go out there just for safety reasons. And Alex asked, do you provide accessories to go with the items like bubbles for the bubble machine? Yes, we do. So we do have, we call them replenishables. So they're things that you use and then throw away after you're done with the item. So we keep those back at our desks in the back. And as we check and make sure everything is in good working order, we also replenish those things. We also keep extra parts for, like extra drill bits for the drill. If someone loses one of those, that's not something that we're going to, call them up and charge them for, because it's pretty reasonable to us that might get lost. But we keep some of the smaller replacement items as well that we just go ahead and replace for people.
All right, excellent. Does anybody have any other questions they can think of right now? Like I said, if you think of something before we end today, feel free to put it in the chat, and we can always circle back to everybody. So thank you, Kat, so much for presenting that. You both of you all have some amazing things.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Next up is Julia Allegrini, which hopefully I got close to pronouncing that right. If I didn't, I apologize. From Kenton County.
You got it right. And I'm going to also send my email out to people if you have questions. I'm going to talk about a little bit different approach. We have a library of things. I'm with Kenton County Public Library. We have a library of things, and we also have a related tool library. It's called Empower Tools. And both our library of things and our tool library came about because people in the community asked us to do something specific. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the process related to partnerships. In terms of developing these kind of programs. I also do want to point out, Kat, before I go any further, we had pressure washers in our tool library. We probably have destroyed about 9 pressure washers. They get so much use that they're very hard for us to keep in place. So it's very cool that you also have them. But our Library of Things program started officially in 2017 when a member of our Friends organization asked the branch manager at one of our branches to provide telescopes for people. And so through a partnership with the Friends and that branch, we got into the business of library things through these telescopes. Very quickly that emerged and developed to include other kind of scopes, so spotting scopes and binoculars. And then with the emergence of Wi-Fi, we also pulled our Wi-Fi into that. The next year, in 2018, a community partner, Center for Great Neighborhoods, came to us, and they had received a significant grant, 2 grants actually, from different organizations to help their local community. And those grants, what the Center for Great Neighborhood was able to do is they did an extensive needs assessment in their community that led to the community saying they wanted to look at issues related to food deserts and healthy living and things like that. So with those grants and through follow-up, okay, now we have the grants, how do we really move into it? So their grant funding provided for a variety of kind of arms to help this community with issues around food. One was a model where they did cooking programs. One was where they actually trained people to become, to scale up for food businesses if they were interested in that, and things like that in the community. So it started with community groups asking us for help. And that's what we did. And they came to us and they say, we've got this community group and this needs assessment, and what they are telling us is they need tools. And because the partner was more into community development and neighborhood processes, they looked to the community and said, who can help us with a tool lending library? And they thought, the library. So they pulled us into the process at that point. We were able to very quickly scale up to catalog the materials. We had a business partner also which lent us a storefront for the store. So we were able to scale up very quickly with approximately 200 tools that we got out into the community. So again, our process started not so much from us, but from people saying, hey, library, you do these things, you get things into people's hands. Can you help us? Because these are the things we want to get into people's hands. And then the product basically, so it's a small tool library. We started in a storefront. We have approximately 350 tools. We serve in a season, we're closed for the winter, approximately 600 patrons. And we'll check out anywhere from 150 to 250 items a month. And we also, I noticed, Kat, you talked about this a little bit. We had a very extensive discussion about what kind of tools do we get. So we were able to buy the tools initially with these grants and staff the program also with grant. And people were asking us for incredible types of tools, concrete mixers, all kinds of things. And we decided that what our emphasis would be on is the average tool that the average person can put in the average car. And we looked at, again, in context of what the community was saying about gardens. We have a lot of gardening tools, and we kind of expanded. We have some lawnmowers. We also are in the original grant was concentrated on a section of the community that was a lot of older historic homes in a changing demographic, anywhere from subsidized housing to high-end remodels and things like that. So we wanted people to be able to care for their homes. So we looked at the systems in a home to make sure we have things to do things that people typically need to do in homes. And one of the things we learned very quickly is a secondary goal of the grant process. The community center wanted to help build the community. And what we found with the tools is that neighbors were borrowing tools to help neighbors. So again, that fit not only that food emphasis, but the community development of community ownership, community pride in ownership, and getting to know your neighbors and getting to function as a community. So that was a very cool learning in our first year. And to this day, so we started in 2018, we currently still have 50% of our patrons that are from the original targeted community. It was a specific zip code. And then once the grant expired, the partnership changed. So every year we looked at our memorandum of understanding. The original grant paid for the tools, the staffing, the information infrastructure. And the library provided the cataloging, the patron management, and the tool management. So as that changed, as the grant monies ran out, we assumed more responsibility for staffing. We now pay, and the staff is now an employee of the library. We also had to move because with the changing nature of the community, our storefront became more economically of greater economic interest to the landowner. So he originally was letting us use it at no cost. He added some costs. The costs went up, so we had to move, which also was a transition thing. I'll talk about a little bit about some of the issues. And we are now currently paying half of the rent of our location. So we're providing staffing, we're providing catalog, tool maintenance, and things like that. The other thing we do, I did not write this down, but I wanted to point it out in terms of our process. Our patrons also sign waivers. The Kenton County Library we do not charge overdue fines. So we do have some separate kind of identity issues with the library and with the Center for Great Neighborhoods. So one of the things, our first year, we lost approximately 10% of our tools, which we really could not afford to do. So what we ended up doing was we were able to implement a process of secondary identification. And the reason we did that, and this is again where community partnerships have their strengths and their weaknesses, we talked about things like they're going to let patrons have to put a credit card down. We did not under any circumstances want to deny services to people because they could not afford even a credit card. We did not want to in any way limit this to people by income. So what we kind of came upon is a secondary identification process. So a library card expires every 3 years. And Empower Tools ability to borrow things from Empower Tools expires every year. And each year you have to re-sign a waiver. And each year we go through a secondary identification process. So we test your email account. We test your address. We call your cell phone number. And that has significantly cut down on our loss ratios. So that worked out very well for us. It's a little bit cumbersome. Patrons have some questions about it, but typically when we explain to them, because our tools still are basically purchased and surviving on the grant model, we can't afford to repurchase. I referred to the power washers that they just get damaged, they get worn out. We can't afford to do that. We can't afford to deal with theft. We also work with some of the pawn shops in the area. We've never recovered any of our lost, but from the first to the second year, we went from losing approximately 15 very high-end tools to losing 2. So that process works, so we keep using that. So you all, I don't have a question slide or anything, so if you have questions, I'm kind of skimming over because I'm concentrating on the process, but if you have questions about that, let me know. That's the product. It's a seasonal tool library. It's located away from the library in the community center at this point now. So, and we are open seasonally. Now I'm just going to talk, and I forgot a slide, and I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the issues we have, and I've alluded to some of them. The first one is partnerships take longer. It's much harder when you have to consult with your grantors or your process, your partner in terms of the legal issues, the policy issues, and things like that. They just take longer. So you have to be very careful to stay on top of your memorandum of understandings, review them, watch kind of the ownership issues, and just really attend to the relational realities of a partnership. One of the things that, again, is an issue for us is integrating the tool library with the library's library of things. So again, we have the telescopes, we have the sewing machines, we have some musical instruments, we have some Wi-Fi, and we're in this stage of strategic planning where we're trying to figure out how to integrate that. And there are some bumps and hiccups along that process. So how come I can pick up a Wi-Fi at any location? How come I can put a Wi-Fi thing on hold, but I can't put a drill on hold? So we have to be very careful about how we present our information to the community. And you can't put a drill on hold, for those of you who might wonder, is we don't have enough of them. They're more expensive. And we want to be able to make them available to the most people at the most time. So Empower Tools items don't renew. Library of Things items do. So we have to manage those kind of issues. And then there are some staffing issues you have to look at, particularly with the tool library. It is a very relational business. It's very much about forming relationships and staying in touch with those people. We literally, if you are late with a tool, we will call you and say, hey, did you remember that you need to get this tree pruner back to us, kind of thing? And we can do that. We have this, we're staffed the way we're structured. We can do that. It's very relational. The staff person who's really good at that is maybe not so good at actually repairing the tools. So we've kind of had to work out. Our maintenance crews help us with tool maintenance. Our staff actually at the Empower Tools is much more oriented toward building those relationships. Trying to think of some other issues. That's about it. So in terms of advice, what I wanted to do, if you're talking about or thinking about or want to expand your programs in terms of the community, you may have a great idea. I had a great idea for an Empower Tools for a tool lending library 10 years before the neighborhood group came to us. But because they had their pulse in a very different way on the community, it took that amount of time to put those things together. We, as the library, are much better at scaling up rapidly to really great ideas and trying things. And we can do that, and we do that a lot. But we really did not have the community coming to us and saying, this really is what we need. And that's what our partner brought us. And so we were able to complement each other. So that's one of my pieces of advice, is find community partners that complement your skill set. We're great idea people. We're great at mobilizing quickly. We're great at trying things. We are open all year. Those are our skill sets. But some of the more substantive kind of relation, what's really happening in the community, there are other people who know that better than us. So then also you have to continue to work on that partnership. We've had changes in staffing. We've had changes in leadership at the Center for Great Neighborhood. And so the partnership it's a process. And you have to pay attention to it. It's not, and we don't get any circ out of it when we're going to meetings and talking with the people in the center and things like that. We're not getting those kind of output things, but we are kind of, again, solidifying our relationships in the community, and hopefully that then makes us better able to respond in need. And in the long run, we do a lot of people come and only borrow tools. We're always referring them to the library. The library staff are always great about saying, hey, we've got this thing at the tool library. So it's very important to kind of maintain and manage those partnerships. And then it helps us stay accountable. We have to do an annual report every year in terms of to the grantor and to our other partner. We have to look at our partnership. Do we want to pay? Can we afford to pay any increase in rent? Can we look at that? And so that level of accountability, I think, helps us also remain a viable program. I mean, one of the things we have to look at, and I'll look to Kat, pressure washers, we had them. They were always, for 3 years, they were our number one rented item. We could not sustain them. We could not keep them repaired. Now, if we bought a $500 pressure washer, maybe, but did we want to do that? And so staying accountable kind of helps us think about that more readily. I mean, we got, those pressure washers each year, 5 pressure washers would get 40 or 50 uses in a season. And Susan, to your question, are all tools seasonal? A lot of the tools can be used year round. Here's the thing that we found and why we're not year round, although that is one of the things we're looking at doing. The first grant, we built in review period. And when it started getting dark, our use fell off the cliff. Our use just really went down. So what we decided to do was to take that first year, that first season, and reevaluate our policies, reevaluate our hours, and do some things like that. And that worked really well for us. One of the things I want to point out was we changed our hours. We used to be open Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. We changed our hours to Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Fewer hours, which saved us some grant money. We doubled our circulation. So we found people wanted the tools before the weekend. They weren't picking them up. So we have kind of kept that model of closing in the fall and in the winter so we can reevaluate. So we are looking at maybe trying some things about staying open, but we're still in an evaluation process right now. So I kind of am running over. Any questions quickly?
All right, and that's all right for going over. You did just fine. So, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and chat those in. If not, you all are more than welcome to exit out of the webinar. In the upper left-hand corner is what they call the pancake stack. You just click on there and leave session. I want to say on behalf of myself, Kim, and definitely Charlie, thank you to Charlotte, Julia, and Kat for presenting today. We greatly appreciate you all taking the time to get this presentation together and share the information that you have. Thanks to everybody else that attended. We appreciate that as well. We'll be sending out I think the system will be doing the certificates. So Charlie will be doing the follow-up for this webinar either tomorrow or possibly on Monday. So want to say thank you all very much. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. Take care out there, and we will see you all again online sometime.